Welcome to the Haunted Hacker October podcast. This is episode number 3, I believe, for this month so far. A little bit of news before we get started. I'll be speaking at the World Ethical Data Forum at the end of this month. I believe it's the 26th to the 28th. It's also virtual, I believe. So if you haven't seen or heard about it, check it out. The panel I'll be speaking on is a carryover from the Euronews documentary episode I did about kids in gaming and the security risk. Also, I'll be speaking for ICE at some point this month, I believe, for their Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And also, I'm toying around with the idea of writing a book for Forbes. I was approached by a Forbes publishing company to talk about writing my book. So that may have been the problem, the solution to my problem. Anyways, today we have my good friend Max Justice. I believe this is our 3rd episode, and a lot of catching up to do. So, Max, what have you been up to? I love your background, by the way.
Thanks, man. I'm super excited, and in fact, I just got some investor funding as well. So, man, things are launching, literally launching. The number of things that I have going on at my farm, it's incredible. And all mushroom based. And we grow organic mushrooms. We don't have our organic certification. We're working on that. But the whole, in fact, I don't know if we'll get it this year or not, next year at the latest, but the growing of mushrooms, that's not really innovative. People have been doing that for thousands of years.
Right.
But what we're doing is we are taking mushrooms, or at least mycelium, before they fruit mushrooms, and we are turning that into alternatives for plastic, concrete, and home insulation, fiberglass insulation in particular. Yeah.
And satellites, right?
Well, so there won't be necessarily alternatives to satellites, but yeah, definitely want to get the satellite going. And thanks to the Biden administration, I can't believe I'm saying this, it might be launching some really other fabulous opportunities. So the Biden administration is looking for alternatives to fertilizer. And on the 28th of September, he signed a $500 million grant to go to the USDA. And the USDA is taking that $500 million, and they are looking to award between 50 to 70 awards for alternatives to fertilizer. And my mushroom compost is excellent fertilizer, and I could make a mushroom compost tea that will that any farmer could drive their large equipment up to my barn right there that you see, and I'm going to build a pump house, or I want to build a pump house right there, and fill up their equipment with compost tea.
That's awesome.
And I want to do it for half the price of what they're currently paying for in chemical fertilizer. I gotta go let my dog in. He's driving me nuts.
Yeah, the alternative for compost and using what you have going on, I think that would be a really big game changer, especially with all the chemicals that they put in fertilizer, especially nowadays. I think that's key. But Biden's making big moves. So I think just recently he pardoned something like 6,000 people for possession and use of marijuana charges. 6,000 people.
Good.
So it looks like that administration's like taking the right steps in certain areas. I really appreciate that, because I think that there are so many uses for THC when it comes to veterans and PTSD. They've tried microdosing with mushrooms, and I think that opening up microdosing with cannabis for PTSD, I think we're going to see that coming really soon, if the administration keeps moving the same way they have been.
And I'll tell you, if mushrooms become legal, buddy.
Whole
I
different
will.
world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's truly amazing world, amazing life that we live in.
So I got a question, Max, and this question came up in a casual conversation with a friend of mine the other day. So the possession of psilocybin
Mhm.
mushrooms is illegal. However, the spores that create those mushrooms, the possession of the spores is not illegal. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't looked to see. Every state is different, and then of
Mhm.
course federal requirements. But really, the psychedelic mushrooms, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
They the woods, they're the mountain range that you see up there. I can go up there and go find them.
Mhm.
So for and if I go find them and touch them, then the spores are going to be on me. So to make it that the spores are illegal, that's like saying bacteria is illegal.
Right.
Um, so I would be hard pressed to say. In fact, you could even have the mycelium as long as you haven't fruited it and fruited body. I think that's the only way truly it's illegal.
Yeah. So the reason why the conversation came up is because we found a website in Canada that was actually selling the spores, like vials of the spores.
Right.
And so we researched it, and the argument was, now, is the spore form of the fungi, is that illegal, or is it when it becomes a mature fungi? And so, like you said, some states, it's illegal, some it's legal. It just depends, but it's such a gray area. And I think that's an area that has to be well defined before they can make that like completely legal across the board. But it's one of those technicalities. And the same thing with, when they made marijuana legal in a lot of states, especially Washington, D.C., it was legal. However, it was illegal to possess it outside of a dispensary. So you couldn't actually be on the street and have marijuana on you because it was illegal, but it wasn't illegal to have the dispensaries. So it's a really tricky situation. I think that, you know, we're not used to taking things that are natural and making them illegal or legal. I think there's such a moral and ethical debate on why or how we can have that jurisdiction over something that grows naturally.
Yeah. Even just like hemp. So I want to grow hemp because part of what we're there's alternatives to plastic, concrete, and uh, insulation. I want to grow that using hemp as, and then put the mycelium onto the hemp and let that grow out. And I want to grow my own hemp. I got plenty of room, and even I have to ask for a waiver from the state of Pennsylvania just to grow hemp.
Mhm.
Not, and I have to prove to them that it has no THC, and it's just a pain in the butt for something that's totally natural. And in fact, we should grow more of it. It's good for the environment.
Right. I totally agree. And what's really strange is, so here in Tennessee, CBD and THCA and Delta and stuff like that is legal. However, it's such, I don't think the people who write the laws really understand the science behind it, right? So with Delta, right, or THCA basically is a precursor for THC. The only thing that separates THCA and THC is fire. So when you introduce fire into, THCA pre-roll that you can get at a legal dispensary, guess what? It then converts to THC. So how they're getting these things through the law and whatnot is really strange. But there's also incidents where, counties, sheriff's department will raid these dispensaries because they're not allowed. They everything has to be cash.
Right.
So
Yeah,
they're taking the money and burning all of the dispensary product and walking away. And there's really nothing those people can do.
correct.
So it reminds me of the prohibition times, with alcohol.
Very much. It's, in fact, it's almost identical.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're over 25% of the population. It's legal to have marijuana, and the war on drugs is just stupid,
Right.
and it's almost as stupid as
The war on terrorism.
that one is definitely stupid, but it's also when we privatized the prison system
Oh yeah,
in
definitely.
itself was one of the most stupid things that we've done, because all we've done now is we've created an economy based upon incarceration.
Right.
I mean, my God, you can't. How do you scale that?
You don't. And have you seen the documentary on Netflix about the privatized prisons in Louisiana? There's actually a man in that prison who got arrested 3 times with possession of marijuana less than an ounce. Now he's doing 20 years. How is that possible? Over a joint. So it's just sad, but the whole documentary was focused on how privatizing the prison system is lengthening incarceration, and it's also increasing the amount being incarcerated. And as long as we have privatized prisons and the state gets money and the private company who owns a prison is getting money, everybody's happy to keep those things filled. So how do we break that cycle as a society?
Yeah, there are times when I'm worried that we can't.
Right.
And climate change is a perfect example.
Mm.
Proof's there, folks. It's real. We've done it. We are the species that's killed ourselves or killing ourselves, and we're doing it in so many ways. From the food that we eat, we're letting corporations kill us with freaking macaroni and cheese. The chemicals, the yellow number 2 or 4, or any of those, it's just total shit that causes cancer, but yet that's okay.
Aspartame.
And try finding gum without aspartame. I actually have some, but finding it's next to impossible. And that's just one aspect, one industry, food. Every single industry, there are so many people that can do things that just outright kill you.
Right.
And then I believe in capitalism. Capitalism kind of works, but it's not it's not the best approach. I don't know what is.
No, I think it's going to have to be a hybrid mix between a certain level of socialism and capitalism. The only reason why is because with capitalism, the rich get richer, the greedier get greedier, and the poorer get a lot poorer. If you don't introduce some sort of hybrid system where we actually stop, running fast forward and take a step back and pause for a second, reach out a hand and help the lower class back up, that class system is never going to work, and capitalism will kill itself eventually. But there has to be some sort of hybrid system.
And your new world that you're creating, that's probably the answer. That the integrated virtual and real world. That's one day I realized that I'm going to have to kind of plug in, whether it's through a new eyeball that's wirelessly transmitting, plugs into the internet. But if I'm going to be in cybersecurity for 10 years or longer, in 10 years, if you're not going to plug yourself in cybersecurity, you might as well just go away, because the bot and person integrated that's what's going to keep out the bad actors.
It will. And the reason why I say that, so I have to take a minute. I have to eat some crow in this podcast, because I've been slamming meta and metaverse and the whole idea for so long, until I actually tapped into it. Yes, it is a cesspool for some really bad shit, but it's also, there's a frontier there. And I can honestly say that I've been excited about certain technologies came out over the years, but when I put this Oculus on for the first time and walked into space and experienced a spacewalk as if I was the astronaut and it was realistic and it felt real, there's something there. And then when I went into some of these different venues and within Horizons World, it's like a VR chat type deal, but you can also build your own world. I saw concerts that were only for the metaverse. I saw TED Talks that were only for metaverse. And I thought, wait a minute. So we had this idea last year, me and my buddy Corey that I work with, about having a conference in virtual reality, but we didn't know how we were going to do it. Once I hit the Horizons World and saw the potential there, all my questions were answered. I mean, you can literally be there. And what really tripped me out, so there's a physical aspect to virtual reality as well with your body. And
Mhm.
only a certain number of people experience it. But when I took off the Oculus, for a while, it took my brain a little bit to reacclimate to the fact that this was the actual physical realm, because I still felt like I was in that virtual reality.
Mm.
It's a physical feeling. It's so weird. And so I looked it up, and some people have experienced it for 30 minutes, some 60 minutes, some a week. Like there's a physical effect to being in that virtual world. Um, but it's just amazing the things that you can do there and experience and travel, and the things you can do are just limitless. But also the bad side of it, I tend to be a little pessimistic when it comes to things like this with reason. So on there, I was introduced to places where you could get drugs. There were people telling kids how to use these drugs and showing them physically with the device how to use it. There were some pretty shocking things that I ran into. There are parts of it reminded me of when you got your first AOL disk or your first launch disk to get onto the internet as a teenager, and the things that you were exposed to immediately.
All
Now,
right.
yeah, take that and multiply it, amplify it by a million, and that's what these kids are experiencing in an immersive environment. So, yeah,
And then they're taking drugs on top of it, which is really effing them up.
yeah,
Which, by the way, kids, don't do drugs until you're
no,
like 24. At 24 is a good age, you can start go to town.
right, yeah, it was amazing. But the things that I was worried about with the metaverse, I completely confirmed. Like they do exist. Like there is some bad shit in the metaverse,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's a lot of good potential too. So it's much like the internet, but the potential is much greater. But also the negative aspect I think is much greater. So what we're dealing with is the internet 2.0, which was, in the virtual aspect of it, I think can be a lot more dangerous.
Oh yeah. Um, there will be a greater need for psychologists and shrinks and coaches and oh yeah, because the kids aren't taught in schools how to deal with their emotions and feelings, and so they now they call it adulting, I think, because they've grown up. They have to control those emotions and feelings. Um, the as well as a whole bunch of other things, and uh, it's going to be up to people like you and I to help them with that transition from one reality to another. Because actually, we've done it several times, especially for the folks transitioning from the military.
Mm,
That's like going from one world to another, and if you speak a different language, and it's as a you have a different mindset, a different view of things.
mm,
Uh, and frankly, I don't know. No, and knowing what I know now, I don't know if if I know then what I know now, I don't think I'd join the Marine Corps, even though the Marine Corps taught me to be a man and do amazing shit. Uh, and literally, I can do anything. In fact, that dude, I got so much to tell you about this farm. It's fun, but the military, it gives you that sense, like there isn't really anything I can't do.
Right.
No, even whenever you hit rock bottom, you're like going, all right, I can make it out of this.
Well, see, I think that for me, though, the military taught me that there is no other option but to keep going. Like you can't just stop and you know, I guess feel bad for yourself or feel pitiful for yourself.
Baseball.
Yeah.
Right. You pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go at it again.
Yep.
You know, that's the great thing about this world that we live in. Yeah, the opportunities are abound. Now, I don't believe in, manifesting. I think it's more of you have to put action to those words.
Right.
I've been listening to a lot of reading a lot of books that talk about manifesting, and I'm like, well, yeah, you can't just say I want to be a multi-millionaire,
Right.
and boom, you're a multi-millionaire or a billionaire. There is a lot of flipping hard work.
Right. So the dream board, have you ever heard about the dream board the vision board where they take the board and they put like things that they want on this vision board? So I tried that. But I think, when you talk about manifestation, I think it's less of the universe's response to that manifestation request. I think it's less of that and more of, okay, I'm putting this in my head. This is my goal, but I'm reminding myself by putting it out there and reminding myself that I have to work to make it come back. But I don't believe that you put something out in the universe and it just manifests itself. I mean,
Right.
If that was the case, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I would be owning a podcast company. Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't know. I don't think it's called manifesting whenever you're working for years towards something. Like I'm
Right.
going to be governor of this great state of Pennsylvania one day. But that's not that's like 10 years out.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things that you have to do along the way and check off to get you there. And to get you anywhere you want to go. You can't just, the first thing though you have to do is show up. There's so many people that don't show up, which blows my mind. Thankfully, I've got some amazing people here that show up and help me every day because I'm on this flipping computer all the damn time, and it is so hard to build all of this out if it wasn't for having some great people, having a vision, and sharing that vision with many people. Right. Because success doesn't come alone. You have to talk to and touch. In fact, I forget who was it. Somebody that it was a billionaire said, "If you want to be a billionaire, touch a billion people."
Right.
It's anyways, I think we're going down probably a different path, different rabbit hole than we wanted to talk about.
But I think it's important though. I think that your story, so the reason why you got into mushrooms, I think is one of the driving factors on why we became such good friends. So remind the people who haven't heard the story about why you started getting into mushrooms and the situation with, health and stuff like that got you into doing what you're doing.
Sure. So it was about, it's been, I guess 4+ years now. My wife had a hemorrhagic stroke, and she was in fantastic, amazing shape. In fact, she's a bikini bodybuilder. And she had a stroke. And while she was in the hospital, she couldn't remember my name, didn't really know who I was. She would talk to me, but it was, and in fact, she's bilingual. She's actually originally from Ecuador, speaks Spanish, and she spoke English and Spanish like no problem. But she didn't really talk to me or know who I was. So I started doing a lot of research. And I came across this DARPA study that this gentleman did by the name of Paul Stamets. And anybody who probably knows anything about mushrooms knows about Paul. But that was really my introduction. And I found out about lion's mane and how good it is for the brain. In fact, it's the only substance known to humanity that you can ingest that helps grow brain stem cells. So literally, it makes you smarter by eating lion's mane mushrooms. So yes, kids, go eat your lion's mane mushrooms. And if you don't like the taste of mushrooms, go get supplements, go get take extract. But there's a few things in this world that you can do that makes you smarter. And that particular mushroom, I encourage everyone. And in fact, generally over the age of 40, a lot of people get what's called brain fog. I haven't had brain fog in like 3 years because I have my regular dosage of lion's mane mushrooms. And there's so many other health benefits to the various types of mushrooms. Now, and funny, we were talking earlier about some mushrooms that are illegal, but Amanita muscaria, it's known as the death cat, or it's the red mushroom with the white polka dots, rare mushroom with the white polka dots. But it actually, you have to eat a lot of those in order to die. It's actually a hallucinogenic. So there's a lot of things that people don't know about mushrooms because they've heard all these wives' tales. And now we're in this thing called a mushroom boom. And what I mean by that is we're finding out the power of mushrooms, not just by what you eat, but other things that you can do with them. And here on this farm, we are taking mushrooms and turning them into alternatives for plastic, concrete, and insulation for building insulation. And now, because of the Biden administration signing the grant, alternatives for fertilizer, and as well as above my head, you see those 2 silos? Well, I want to turn those into alternatives for thermal storage. I'm literally going to take one and make it a hot or a heat battery, and another one a cold battery. And I'm going to blow hot air out from my heat battery into my barn, and it's going to heat and cool my barn. So I'm going to have my mushrooms grow at a perfect temperature all year round. And I'm going to put solar on my roof of my barn. In fact, at 4 o'clock today, I have a meeting with my solar company. I'm going to put 78 kilowatts of sunshine captures on the roof of my barn or barn. And then from there, I will redirect some of that energy into my thermal storage battery. And I'm going to heat up some rocks. And those rocks will hold the heat that's created. They'll hold for like weeks on end.
Yeah.
There's this company out of Finland. They just there's a big YouTube demonstration. They took the company is called Polar Night out of Finland, and they made a sand battery that is 100 100 metric tons of sand. Well, that little silo above my head there, I think that can hold about 100 metric tons of sand. Wow. So I'm building basically something identical, but I fill it full of sand and I stick a bunch of pipes in there. And one of the pipes it's much bigger to where I have those rocks, and I heat up those rocks and I heat up those rocks to between 14 and 1600 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Those rocks will maintain that heat for like 3 weeks if they're insulated properly. Well, one of the best insulators is sand.
Sand, yeah.
Sand. And in fact, the creator of the lithium battery, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he made a statement and said, if you want to make a cheap battery, it's got to be cheaper than dirt. Well, my friend, I found that. And so now I can take the solar energy that I'm capturing, run it through my sand battery to heat up the rocks, and then it'll stay, that heat will stay in there. And then if I ever really want electricity, even on, let's say, a day that's not, the sun's not out, I can convert that thermal energy into electric energy. But now, here's the thing: people are like, that is so inefficient. Why would you want to take thermal and turn it into electric? Who cares how efficient it is if it's a continuous loop?
Yep.
And if the sun shines here on my farm in Pennsylvania, almost all the darn time. But even when it doesn't, I don't care if it's inefficient, because if I've got 3 weeks to go before I have to heat those rocks again, then the sun will come out at least once in those 3 weeks.
And recharge it, yeah.
Exactly. So I don't care if it's inefficient. So now between the solar, I'm gonna put 78 megawatts on the roof of the barn, and then I don't know what the efficiency or how much power I can generate from the thermal, but I plan to do that because for several reasons. One, I also plan on building a data center and mining for crypto.
So what's funny is, I had a guy on the podcast not too long ago, and he has a van. He has, I guess, solar panels on, and he has a mobile data center. So it's literally a copy and paste data center, like cloud environment, copy and paste. But it's ran out of his Sprinter van, where he travels the U.S. and lives out of his van.
Oh, dude, we gotta hook me up with that guy, so that way when he's driving through someday, stop by.
Yeah, it's so what you're having is basically a mini reactor, a thermal mini reactor, basically. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and this is my world that's come together. By the way, those silos that you see there, so those are concrete silos, and they're like 8 inches thick.
Yeah.
So I'm working now with Shippensburg University, Penn State, and a couple other universities. I'm gonna get some college kids to figure out if it's structurally sound enough to hold that much sand, and if not, then I'll have to reinforce it with some bands. But still, this is all doable, and I'm using technology that exists today. I don't have to get anything special. I can literally go to Home Depot, get everything I need to build all this out. And I gotta have some people deliver some sand or deliver sand. See, I got plenty of room for it, and then I just gotta pump it up into that silo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's gonna be really cool. You'll have to let me know when you finish it. Actually, the company I work for is out of Pittsburgh, and we have a lot of connections over at Mid Ohio, and
right.
So I may be up there at the end of the year. I may stop by and take a look at this stuff, because it sounds really cool.
You absolutely got to stop by, and but not in addition to all that. So the fertilizer, the mushroom. Let me back up. So the mushrooms that we grow, we have once it's all said and done, the end of the life, we put everything into a compost pile. Well, mushroom compost, it's highly sought after, especially by like florists and people who grow flowers, because it's a tremendous fertilizer. But people aren't really taking mushroom compost and scaling it up. And I can scale it up quite easily by making a compost tea. And so now, I'm already selling my compost, but now I'm also going to sell compost tea, and in massive, like thousands of gallons at a time.
It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And now, one of the reasons why I brought that up, because the mushroom compost is one of the things that they talk about, that if it has a downfall, it doesn't have as much nitrogen in it. Well, in the bottom of my barn there, I've got a little flock of chickens, and I have a sand litter pen for them. So I rake out their litter and throw that in my compost pile, and now I've got tons of nitrogen in my compost as well. So it's amazing. Now the Biden administration signed this grant. There's 2 closing dates. one is the 14th of December, or excuse me, 14th of November, and the other is the 29th of December, both of this year. The first award is 29 December of this year, and then the second award, that'll be in mid-spring. But if this happens, man, I am going to be hopefully the fertilizer king, or mushroom fertilizer king, because it's we can do a lot of good for this world, and we don't put chemicals back in. And then we can go live in our virtual worlds and make that a little bit more fun and exciting.
Exactly. And I found ways to like really like get the good use out of like herbs like lavender and stuff like that. I ended up buying a extractor diffuser called a Levo 2. And you put the herbs inside these little pods inside the Levo 2, and it will extract everything from the herbs. You can dry the herbs, you can infuse oils. I mean, it's a game changer for people who have like arthritis or people who like are wanting essential oils. Like you can literally pull it from the herbs with that machine. So it works really well.
What's the name of that machine called?
Levo 2, Levo 2, and you can find them on Amazon.
Okay, I will check out.
Real quick, while we're talking about that, want to give a plug for our new partners, PIA VPN, private internet access company. They provide the #1 solution for VPN. So if you have a kid that's doing gaming or you're trying to protect your data, which I'm a big proponent for, definitely look into them. If you're trying to get away from having people looking to what you're doing on the internet, like your ISP, then a private internet access company is your way to go. And you can get your 82% discount if you go to piavpn.com/hauntedhacker for the month of October, the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. You'll get an 82% discount. So go check that out. Also, the link will be in the show notes, so you can check that out as well. So, what's that?
No logs. They don't.
No logs. No logs. Yeah. So if your ISP tries to get a hold of PIA and say, hey, we want Mike's logs for the month of November, private internet access company returns a phone call and says, no, we don't have logs, so can't do. So just a little hint, PIA is probably the way to go. So with that, I want to hear where you're taking this farm in the future. So the one thing that I've noticed and I've researched over the past, I guess, couple months since we've talked, one of the things that people are concerned about is the soil, right? And the fact that we've been farming on this soil on this planet for so long, and now the vegetables that we produce in the US, like lettuce and some other stuff, literally don't have the, I guess, nutritional value that they used to have because our topsoil no longer contains those minerals and vitamins. So with mushrooms, what's really cool is you don't have to use that topsoil. I mean, you can use cocoa, you can use all kinds of stuff to grow mushrooms on, which I think is like epic because it saves a whole lot of problems when it comes to going to market. But where do you see taking this farm? Is it something you want to like completely monetize and something we see in stores, or is it something that you're going to continue doing for your own research and your own benefit?
Well, there are many things. First, any good entrepreneur knows that you can't put all your eggs in one basket, and so this farm doesn't have just one revenue stream. It's going to have 10 revenue streams. And then one of the great things about mushrooms, and I got my MBA in 2006, and it took me until 2018 to figure out what am I really going to use my MBA for. I was a consultant at Booz Allen Hamilton and worked at so many of the federal agencies as a consultant, but I didn't get any joy out of it. I mean, I didn't feel like I was giving anything back. So one, I plan on giving back a lot here on this farm. And one of the things I plan on giving back is every piece, or plan on capturing every piece of carbon that my entire family before me generated over my life, because I'm the last of my family. I've got one family member left, and that's it. So I want to make sure that I take back all the bad stuff that we did for this world, and that's one aspect. But the future. So all of these businesses that I'm creating are, and by the way, so setas mushrooms. Setas is Spanish for mushrooms.
Right.
So we have setas fertilizer. We have setas renewables. We have setas, just the prime aspect of setas. Everything that we're doing is really mushroom based. But Elon Musk is sending 10,000 rockets to Mars.
Which people have seen, like the satellites, when he sends rockets up into space, it ends up being reported as UFO. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, exactly. All the time. And that's going to happen more and more often because he's going to be sending more and more rockets up into space. This past year, they averaged, one a week. Next year, they want to average one a day.
Wow.
And then the following year, it's multiple times a day. But they're working their way to starting, I think it's 2024, that they want to start sending people to Mars, right? And he wants to send 1 million people to Mars.
I'll volunteer.
I will be there. So we'll see. We'll be drinking. We'll be having a drink on Mars, my fellow Martian. And so I have to generate enough revenue to get on one of those bad bears, and this is going to help me do it. But all those people, when they're going to Mars, they want to take some of their shit. Right. Everybody has their own shit that they want to take. George Carlin does a great routine about people and their shit. When they go to Mars, they're going to want to take their shit with them. And how are they going to get it there? Right. Well, they're going to have to pack it up. And then it's got to get packed in the rocket. Well, I am making those alternatives for plastic and other packing material. So when people want to take their stuff to Mars, I want to make the packing material for what goes into those rockets. Nice. Send my packing material to Mars, and people then can reconstitute the packing material and eat fresh mushrooms on Mars.
That's right. Plant mushrooms. That's an awesome idea.
I want to have people eating my mushrooms on Mars.
That literally reminds me of a saying that came out of a movie called Hackers. Hack the planet. So that's basically what you're doing to Mars, is you're hacking the planet. That's really cool.
And really, that I'm hacking the planet with mushrooms now. I mean, with this mushroom boom, we're making all these alternatives to mushroom. There's this company called Ecovative Design. They are really the industry leaders, and I'll be buying licensing from them so I can make this packing material as alternatives to plastic, alternatives to concrete, and alternatives to installation. Mm-hmm. I'm using their proven process, and they've been in business for over 10 years. They've had their Series C funding. Robert Downey Jr. just gave them like $75 million.
Wow.
Yeah, here you go make some money. But I've really hacked mushrooms, and that's now I know what we can make out of them. Mm-hmm. Mercedes-Benz and BMW is putting reishi leather, reishi mushrooms. They've taken reishi mushrooms and they've converted it into leather. And that leather is more durable and softer than cowhide.
Wow.
So Mercedes and BMW both putting reishi leather into their cars. Now, the nice part is, and one day I plan on making reishi leather as well. And you can make 24-foot wide rolls, 100 feet long, seamless, without a single stitch seam. Wow. You can't do that with leather.
Unless
as
it's a
well.
really big, unless it's a really big cow.
Yeah, that's got to be a huge cow, and I don't want to eat that damn thing. Which I stopped eating meat a long time ago. Because in fact, I told my wife, we eat a little bit too much mushrooms. I mean, she will eat those darn things all day long. But the difference in varieties and taste, like people don't realize there are more varieties or species of mushrooms than there are plants and trees combined.
Right.
And that all of, like, we grow 28 different varieties of mushrooms here on the farm. And that's only just a small piece. There are mushrooms that we're finding that do many amazing things. Whether it's help you overcome a traumatizing event or get off LSD and heroin. One mushroom trip, and people were saying, "Adios, LSD." I mean, it's it literally this mushroom boom that we're on. It's going to be an incredible ride, and I encourage anyone to come get on this mushroom ride. It's amazing, and I wish I had your beard to go along with this.
Actually,
by the way, when are you shaving that? I guess November.
November. So I was just about to say this beard won't be around too much longer. I think I got like another month of growth left. But yeah, if we hit $100,000 for the I guess it's called the Cyber Beard Shave by Matt Lee. If we hit 100,000, this comes off. Of course, I'll be growing it right back, but yeah, it'll come off. And another thing too about Mars, which is really cool. If Elon Musk or any of his cronies are listening, next time you send a rocket up that way, can you please put a 360 camera, VR camera on that rocket so we can actually go up with that rocket in virtual reality? Like, I think that would be so cool.
Dude, that would be cool.
Right.
That would be way
cool. Yeah. So if anybody's listening that works for NASA or for SpaceX, please put a fusion camera on that device or that rocket next time so we can actually experience it. So, but that's to me like developing mushrooms and hacking the mushroom and going to Mars and experiencing these things in virtual reality and this other dimension. Like, we're moving fast. We're moving a lot faster than I thought we were at one point. It doesn't surprise me, and I completely underestimated where we were at as a society when it comes to technology. But I think in the past 10 years, like, we have hit hyperspeed. And I think it can be a good thing, but I still have that pessimistic side. It's like, this is going to end up in a bad situation.
Yeah, I still don't have like Alexa or any kind of AI or IoT in my house, but I am going to put artificial intelligence in my chicken coop. Mm-hmm. And I'm simply going to put a camera in there, and I'm going to be working with a college kid who knows Python or R, and we're going to do machine learning on my birds, and artificial intelligence will tell me if so. A chicken only has one hole or one exit, and that's for pee and poo. So it's called a vent. And when a chicken doesn't vent, I'm going to have artificial intelligence tell me, hey, this chicken's not venting. You might want to go check it.
Right.
As well as like I have this chicken is losing its feathers because it's being picked on, or what have you. I'll be able to have artificial intelligence tell me that kind of stuff. And it's going
also
to
the rate of egg drop.
Yes. Right? Oh yeah, absolutely. And these are the types of things that I never would have thought of when I was a little kid. Right. And nowadays, I mean, I would have never thought I was getting a PhD. And I'm in the middle of, I'm just finishing chapter 3, and so my dissertation is 5 chapters, and I'm just finishing up chapter 3. So I'm targeting April of next year to have that doctor title. So we'll see how that goes. But it's I don't want to have that prestige. Ooh, doctor, that's kind of one reason why I'm a cyber farmer. And we have to sow a lot of seeds of cybersecurity in order for cybersecurity to work, because security is in itself, whether it's cybersecurity, personal security, personnel, national security, organizational security. I mean, I've done all of those forms of security and then some. And security is only a philosophy. And if you don't practice and follow the philosophy, it doesn't work. So we have to talk to people about how to be safe with artificial intelligence and define ethics, because otherwise we have bias in our data. And as we know, bias doesn't work at any means. In fact, when we start telling people, no, you can't do that, or we're going to put you in jail, then that's the dark side of artificial intelligence, is that it can be used for bad, and monitoring their people. And China is doing a lot of that now, although we do have the NSA. I do know that they're monitoring you and I because we've been in those worlds.
Right.
And they will never stop monitoring us, bastard. Not for you, Mike. That was I think they know exactly what I was talking about.
No, I totally get it. So to put things in perspective, I went and so I was able to get a savings account not too long ago. It was my first real account since being on the preferred list of the government. And then so I went to the bank to try to open up a checking account because I got tired of not having a debit card, right? So I go in and they said, well, we don't look at credit for that. We look at other things. And yeah, you're not even close. And I was like, well, what do I have to do? What is my goal? And they were like, well, if we could put a label on it, we would tell you, but this is out of our control. And I was like, oh, say no more. I know exactly what it is. And they were just kind of looked at me and just kind of nodded their head like, yeah, you do. So, I mean, just like the AI in the wrong hands, I mean, our government already makes bad decisions. Can you imagine how bad they would be with AI?
Right. And so that's why it's vital for us to define the ethics now. And we have to stand up to the government and make sure that we still maintain, whether it's well, so that's the other thing. Our Bill of Rights, it's still valid, but it's dated.
It's outdated.
Right. And I think it's time for a new one. Now, people might say, oh, you're trying to. Look, I don't necessarily, I'm an old fart, okay? I don't necessarily start new governments, but we could use one. And we need one that's based on trust. Because right now, we don't trust our current government.
We don't trust each other.
Well, right. There's not, so that's the problem. We have this thing that we follow in cybersecurity called a zero trust model.
Right.
Well, a couple of things. One, just the term is wrong, because technology cannot talk if it doesn't have a trust relationship. It's impossible for one machine to talk to another if they don't trust one another.
The SYNAC, yeah.
Right. Thank you. So why we thought, oh, this makes perfect sense. We just won't trust anything. We won't trust our people. We won't trust our process. We won't trust our technology.
Right.
Sorry, folks, but that's the dumbest thing in the world. We have to have trust in people, each other. And then people said, well, the zero trust policy doesn't include people. Bullshit. That's exactly what it means.
But let's take this in perspective. Let's look at it from a different point of view, right? So they're wanting a zero trust relationship or a zero trust environment. So basically what they're saying is, okay, we've spent the last 50 years developing these computers and these networks. Oh shit, we don't trust any of this anymore. So, I mean, basically you're saying everything that we built up to this point, we can't trust it to work with each other. We fucked up somewhere, is basically what they're saying.
Yeah, well, nobody admits that they're wrong anymore.
Right.
I do. I am wrong all the damn time. Just ask my wife. Uh, the you, humility
Mm,
is that we all need to practice more of. We, the, humanity. That's why we are all here as people.
right.
And the people in this world is big enough for all of us, and there's more people coming. When I was born, there was less than 4 billion people on this planet, and now we're approaching 9. I'm
9.
like, oh shit, 9 billion. Now there's some people saying that 10 is going to be our cap.
Define it. Define a cap, though. What is the cap?
Well, they're basing that cap on life expectancy, and that people only live so long, and that you can only have so many, and so on. But here's the thing: we're getting ready to see a massive change in what humanity looks like and how long it lives.
100%.
Between just two reasons only: nanobots and 3D printers.
Yep.
So now I tell people all the time, I'm going to live to be 300 because of those very reasons. So that cap now is going to that 10 million or 10 billion cap. We will blow through that because we're going to live a lot longer. So we're going to see more people living in cities than we ever have before.
Oh, for sure.
50% of the world lives in 10 of the largest cities in the world.
Right.
And there's less farmers. In fact, I am the 1%. 1%, well, less than 2% of the world is feeding 98%. And so we need more farmers, not less. And unfortunately, we've gone to this globalization, and the pandemics taught us, hey, globalization doesn't work. Now regionalization, that absolutely works, and we need more local and regional farmers to produce more food and products. And alternatives. They can grow alternatives. We're going to be growing our clothing.
Right. I tell people that, if you're looking for a hobby or you're looking for something interesting to get into, pick a critical infrastructure and look at what we have as backups to that infrastructure if that were to go away. Like communication. Take communication, for example. What happens if the telephones or internet goes down? Who takes over? People with ham radios. So what a cool hobby to have to help support a critical function. Farming is no different.
Correct. And now, granted, I'm going to high tech the shit out of this farm. It's a vertical indoor farm. In fact, I'm going to have I'm just going to put some alfalfa in the fields, and over by that one tree, kind of sitting all by itself, there. I'll put beehives.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, bees, when they pollinate on clover, or not clover, off of alfalfa, that honey, it tastes so sweet. It's amazing. Really? Oh yeah, it tastes so much better off of alfalfa. Nice. And I want to produce that not all year round, but that'll be a good crop to grow. And that will be used for my chickens. Love to eat it as well, which is nice. Makes good bedding for my chickens. So lots of exciting reasons and many things going on in this farm. I pinch myself every day, man.
I'm gonna have to come check it out.
If I do.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come check it out for sure.
And 6 months from now, we're gonna look even different. In fact, 6 months from now, I hope to have my kiln in place.
Oh, nice.
I'll use to dry the substrate where the mycelium is fully colonized, and it grows into the shape or the form that I want it to grow in.
Like the brick, whatever.
Correct. And then I stick it into a kiln and petrify it.
Right.
And I got a video of me on YouTube for like 5 minutes of me standing there with a torch trying to burn one of my bricks.
It's no different than a kiln that fires clay bricks, but you're just doing it with mushrooms.
Exactly. It's yeah, the number of things that we have yet to invent. It's I think we're all getting ready to see either a very amazing life for each and every one of us, or we're going to destroy ourselves. You know, and unfortunately, with what either Putin, he is literally either going to destroy himself, which I think is probably coming,
or everybody else.
Of us, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the two. And unfortunately, I think that much of this world has that same Coke or Pepsi problem. Bad. That's why we have the problem with politics, because now you have these polar extremes, and nobody wants to come in the middle and come together and talk. And communications is vital. If we can't communicate,
right,
yes, we are going to destroy one another. That's how wars start. People can't communicate.
I think the problem is a little bit bigger, though. I think the problem isn't so much as us not being able to communicate. I think it is the government keeping people separated and divided in hopes that we won't communicate, because a unified U.S. is a threat to national security, because everybody's tired of the shit that goes on.
Well, education is education. There's all different types of education, but the more I learn, the less I know.
Right, right. Or the less I want to know.
Well, that too. A lot of times, I don't have time for that.
Or I get into a topic that I wanted to learn about until I started getting some of the information, and then it shocked me so bad that I was just like, okay, maybe I made a mistake and wanted to learn that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the same I feel about my time in the federal government.
Yes. Yes.
We don't reward executives in the federal space for saving money. We reward them for spending all of their money and everybody else's. Yeah. So at the end of the year, when another group or agency or organization hasn't spent their money, then that's when it goes to the DOD. And that's why the DOD's budget is so flippin' big, is because they get scarf up almost everybody's end of year funds.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how few people don't realize, one, the color of money, where it goes, how they got it, where it goes to,
what it's based on.
What it's based on, right? Whether it's real or not. So that's why digital currency. It's going to take off, and the nice part is digital currency will create trust.
Yeah.
Because it's used across the globe. It's used by everyone. And based on the blockchain, we can see it. We know where it goes. So that's the trust model that I'm actually building for my PhD.
Cool.
So I will have to, I'll probably have a conversation with you. So for my PhD, I'm going to interview 25 executives in cybersecurity and talk about a trust model, what that would look like, and what would we need to do to invoke or to get our government to use a trust model. because as we've just been talking, if you can't communicate, you start wars.
Right.
People will communicate if they can't ensure that their money is safe, that they can't trust their money, they can't trust their government, then we're going to have civil war.
Right.
And I don't think our government wants that, but the more people become enlightened,
Mm-hmm.
more
It's
we
inevitable.
are,
It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
right. And like just like with all those people who went to scale the Capitol, um, they believed that they were doing the right thing and that their world was telling them, hey, that's the right thing to do. And that they should go fight for it. That everything is a fight, is a battle. That's why we have the war on everything.
Yeah.
And as long as we still keep calling it the war on everything, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to build trust. We're just going to keep putting people in jail because we got to feed that capitalist monster called private jail system.
Yep. Yeah, and Louisiana is probably one of the biggest culprits of that privatized jail system. I mean, most of the parishes in that state have some sort of privatized commercial jail. It's really, really sad. And the overcrowding in private jails, there's no such thing as overcrowding. They will pack you in like sardines because that's more money for that company. So the conditions there are horrible.
I just started watching Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
We don't binge watch, but my wife and I spend a little quality time watching one show a night before we go to bed because we're working on the damn farm from before the sun comes up till before the sun goes down,
Right.
or till long after the sun goes down. But it's a good little piece of insight into like prison overpopulation and the bad things that we're doing to the people in those prisons, as well as the bad things that we're doing to cultures.
Right.
We
entire cultures, not just individuals. We're talking about entire cultures, just destroying them.
And unfortunately, I know I hit the lotto when I was born. I was born a white male in the U.S.
Right.
And that I'm assuming it afforded me some opportunities because I know that a lot of other people. I feel for a lot of Black people because I mean, hell, every time they get pulled over by a cop, and I speed crazy. Like I speed because I am white. I get away with things.
Right.
Seriously, I've been pulled over for speeding half dozen times in my life. I've only got one speeding ticket, and I'm always going like triple digits. Even in my little 4-cylinder high 2013, and it books down the road. And I never worry about a cop pulling me out of my car by my hair, although they have a hard time grabbing it, and reading me the riot act because I'm a white male.
See, that's where we differ, though. So you have that experience, but me, on the other hand, I'm still a white male. But these things on my arms, the ink, they literally go by skin color, and this to them is a skin color. Correct. So I get the same treatment.
Now, my friend, do one thing that I advise everyone to do because I spent a little time around some cops. Mm-hmm. You have to make them laugh. Always make a cop laugh. So when you get pulled over and the officer says, "Hi, I'd like to see your license." Well, in front of your license, with your license, it was a good person. I cover everything, but hand them a get out of jail free card.
Nice.
And then if you're with somebody, pick up your chance card and give them one for your friend as well. Okay? So now I got 2 get out of jail free cards.
Nice.
I've made the cop laugh. And anytime I can make a cop laugh, it's going to end well.
Right.
When cops come up and they're stern, they're thinking this guy's going to give me a hard time. So start off on a positive note. Even if it was bad, something bad happened, try to start things on a positive note because that cop is just like you, is a person. And unfortunately, the cop's job, or the cop thinks their job is to come in and control the situation, and that means control the conversation, control everything that's going on. They're control freaks. So if you want to communicate well with a control freak, get them to smile. Because once you get a control freak or anyone else to smile, communications, it takes place.
Right.
And no, if you don't communicate, you don't trust.
Yep. We got pulled over recently by a policeman here locally, and he asked my friend a question, and I told him, I said, "You don't have to answer that." The cop asked me, he said, "Where are you headed to?" And after the stop was over, I let my friend that was driving, I let him communicate the way he wanted to with the cop. I said, afterwards, I said, "Do yourself a favor. Next time a policeman asks you where you're going, the answer is, I'm going about my daily business." You don't have to tell them where you're going. There's no need for them to know where you're going or why you're going there. The only thing they need to know is why you were speeding or why you were doing this, or why you were doing that. If it doesn't pertain to that, you don't have to talk to them.
And actually, they need to know that. They
Right.
do not have a need to know. That's why you have the right to remain silent.
Yes, silent.
And I encourage everyone, if you can't make cops smile, remain silent.
Yes, yes. And it's respectful to them too, because they don't have to deal with attitudes. You don't have to deal with that attitude coming back at you. So just do the right thing, answer the question, give them your license, registration, and be done with it. Don't hassle with them. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and close the show. But Max, it's always a pleasure. We always go way over our hour because we have so much shit to talk about.
Oh,
so,
yeah. And
definitely
to everything. But man, it's always nice seeing you. I love seeing your smile, and I'm glad to hear all the great things that you're doing for, dude. The amount of goodwill that you're doing, it's impressive, and it reminds me that I need to get out there and go do more. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Max. And with that, I'll go ahead and close it. Everybody be safe, be kind to each other, and until next time, I'll see you. Thanks, Max.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good.
You too.